Please begin.
Good afternoon, Sharks. I'm here today representing UiPath and 2,200 people around the globe that are trying to make every doctor, every nurse, every administrative support person, every volunteer, and most importantly, every patient better off. In every city, county, state, and federal health institution around the globe. Okay. Give you an example. A couple of years ago, Veterans Administration, under a lot of pressure, Congress helped them out by saying, here's the Mission Act. The Mission Act allowed veterans to go downtown and get medical care. The VA now is stuck with a problem, an unintended consequence of a good idea. And that is, at a small VA hospital in Nebraska, there are 96 inches of paper documents piling up. And those 96 inches of paper, every 10 pieces of paper represent a patient. And that patient who comes back 2 or 3 weeks later needing care may be turned away because the medical records from the doctor downtown were not passed electronically because of the cost to a local doctor. And the people who were doing that work at the Veterans Administration, that administrative staff, they were burdened now by not only being asked to do the work they were doing, but to stop every day and try to chip away at that 96 inches of paper. In robotic process automation, in a 2-day period, brought in by a young GS-13 out at that hospital that said, can you help us? And we said, yes, we'll come right out to your hospital, but we want to make sure you bring your CIO in. And they said, well, my CIO's in Minneapolis. So we all met in Minneapolis because you don't start IT without your CIO. And for 2 days, we worked on a project together. And today, that VA hospital is able to have their people scan the documents. And then their bot, Lincoln Bot, right? After Abraham Lincoln, who started the VA, Lincoln Bot is then able to electronically file those papers. When you get a chief of staff at a hospital that comes to a geek meeting and says, this is good, and let me explain how good it is for this veterans hospital, we have 4 or 5 offices in this building that could use that, and you won't have to do anything extra. We'll use the same bot. We'll do the same process. But that same process is being needed at 141 different Veterans Administration hospitals around the country. Right? 900 people in the VA today, $53 million if they're all GS-9 Step 5s in Dallas, Texas. $53 million do a backlog activity for the VA. For $1.2 million, they can use process robotics, and they can all double their capacity tomorrow morning. Because the bot will do at least half of their work. And so instead of 7 times 900 per day, not getting to the 6,500 or 65,000 backlog they have, they will be able to do 14 a day. And that's just if we put the bot on their laptop. If we give them an unattended bot and ask that bot to work all night, we may see that backlog mitigated and completely eradicated in months. And veterans are going to be better off. And doctors who go into a patient and say, wait, your record's not here, I can't help you. They're going to be over helping a patient that can be helped. And staff that are trying to schedule everybody aren't going to have people there that aren't going to be able to be seen. And all of this is through something that is very simple and lightweight and works wherever you work. Sharks, you want to invest in something that the U.S. government says that everyone ought to use. And they say that in their OMB Memorandum 1823, asking all agencies to use robotic process automation.
Thank you very much, James.
I have a question. This is a paper organizer?
No, it is not a paper organizer. It is a person extender. So if you are NASA, I put the first bot in production for the government when I was with NASA, and it was a finance bot.
Which I guess my question is, are you dealing with digital data or physical data on paper?
I'm going to deal with digital data after the scanner scanning.
So my worry is that for you would be that this is sort of a faster horse model where when paper goes away, do you have a business anymore?
Oh, we certainly do. Because when paper goes away, we have digital. And everything we're doing is digital. So when a patient files something electronically and it needs to be sent to the doctor, and it needs to go to Eric's analysis, and it needs to go to CMS's artificial intelligence, it's got to get there some way. And instead of saying, hey, we have to have 4 more people, and somebody's saying, well, we can't bring on 4 more people, let the bot do that. See, I really want you and I as people in a medical facility talking about my medical problem. I want you helping me to understand what I need to do when I get home and how to do the drugs. I don't want to worry about a bit being moved from this bucket to this bucket. Bots will do that necessary work, while I do what I would call fulfilling work, which is person-to-person patient care.
I think Adam does have a good point there. However, I remember in the late 80s seeing business card scanners in the Office Depot, and you still see those in the Office Depot or online today. So the ability, although we are working diligently to eliminate paper, we still are creating more paper every day than we've ever created. So I think that's a good point, but not necessarily one that keeps your product from being a good product. What I did miss, however, what exactly is your product?
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So our product mimics human behavior. A clerk sits down any place in a supply depot and needs to order parts for helicopters so they can go back to Afghanistan. They spend 60% of their day doing that instead of 60% saying that part on the helicopter is going to save the life of a soldier that's wounded in Afghanistan. Well, what is it going to do? It's going to take the requirement for the part number, it's going to go check and see whether that part number is available. If it's not, it's going to send a message over that says order it, and it's going to go to the just-in-time system and say, here, order this part and bring it here for me tomorrow. The doctor's going to be able to say to it, here's the drug that this person needs. It's going to go to Eric's tool at Data Robot and say, see if that person's allergic to it. Right? Because when I told the doctor I wasn't allergic to penicillin, it was because of a guy, and I never said yes. And so later on I found out I was allergic to penicillin, right? So I want his product telling me that. But I also want something going to the pharmacy saying, order 10 more pills for Jim. And if you don't have them, step back into the depot to see if we can get those pills delivered early. So I'm mimicking what people are doing. And someone's going to say, well, then you're taking our jobs. Far from it, right? $107 million is being set aside by the Department of Labor to train people to do intelligent automation, robotic process automation, so that the workforce of the future in the government is ready for a more digital world.
So I had a patient and I saw them and I need them to get some blood work, some radiology, and then go find an available specialist in their network. Can this thing do all that for me? It'll schedule them an x-ray, it'll schedule the blood work, it'll scan the network to see their insurance, who accepts that type of patient, when is the next available, and it'll send all it to that person?
It's going to do it in the sense that it will replicate your staff. So if you would send something to artificial intelligence that would do the scheduling, and then once it's scheduled, send it back, and then I would present it back to that person that says, here's your email, and here's your visual on your system. And oh, by the way, your records have already moved over to where you need to be, so don't worry about your records catching up with you. So instead of having 3 or 4 people do that, you're going to be able to take a person to sit down and say, now, retired Sergeant Major so-and-so from Korea, you're older, I know you don't remember everything, so let me really help you understand this so that your medical care is better.
So James, I think that you're a skilled presenter, very savvy on your feet, but I'm not sure that your message connected with the audience.
You have an opportunity to react.
I think we're struggling with what this actually is. I think that, because I was initially thinking of like robot hands moving paper, and I was wrong.
It is not. It's
So
software robotics.
Okay.
So I would go in with someone and sit down and watch them do that work, how they schedule a person to do something, every single mouse click, and I would replicate that. But I would do it really quickly because we have a recorder that's recording those keystrokes, right? And then once that's done, when someone comes up and says, schedule an appointment for Jim, it would go out and look at not only all the schedulers, but it would go to the other end and check their schedule to see if there's a possibility of linking me up earlier. It's mimicking the human activity of a mouse click and keystrokes.
All right, thank you, James.